Hey gang, Ross Brand here for Livestreamuniverse.com. I'm going to be talking about tips for interviewing, how you can conduct better interviews, and how interviewing can help you build your brand, build your tribe, and actually make money, actually build your business. If it sounds like this topic is related to the topic of our South by Southwest panel proposal, that's because it is every weekday for the 3 weeks of the panel picker voting. One of our team members, either myself, Coach Jenny, Karen Graves, or Monique Johnson, is going live, sharing some tips and talking about a topic related to our subject matter for South by Southwest. Welcome, Barb. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us. And the topic for South by Southwest is Facebook Live, build your tribe, and actually make money. Hey, Eric. Hey, Nat. Thanks so much for joining us. And if you haven't had a chance to vote for us for South by Southwest, the voting is ending shortly. Please do go vote. It's livestreamuniverse.com/SXSW, livestreamuniverse.com/SXSW. And yes, Barb, please do share. Everybody is welcome to share this out and let people know. I'm going to be talking all about interviewing for the next 25 minutes or so, both about how to conduct a good interview and also how interviewing can benefit you in your business, in building community, in building your personal brand and getting your name out there, and in learning. And there's so many great things. I also think interviewing is just a great form of storytelling. It's a great way to bring out, a good interviewer can bring out someone's story in a way that they might not even think about it or be comfortable telling about it in a solo video or a solo blog post. But when you interview somebody, there's always that possibility that they're going to feel more comfortable talking to somebody else when they're asked about something, particularly when people are modest or they're shy or what have you. Interviewing them and giving them a chance to answer questions, then they just feel they're being polite. They're just answering questions. They're just telling you what you'd like to hear. And they often can open up and talk about their successes and how they got where they are and how they made their business grow, or whatever it is that you'd like to talk to them about and people would like to hear about. So before I get to some a deeper dive on the interview tips, let's talk about some ways that interviews can help your business or build your brand. For business, obviously, one of the great things you can do with interviews is you can interview your employees. And it doesn't have to be a formal interview. It can merely be taking a cell phone around, saying hello to people as they're working. You may want to give them a warning ahead of time, but it very much can be a way of letting the public, the customers, potential customers, get to know your team, get to know perhaps the sales associates they would be dealing with when they come to the store. Perhaps you're interviewing the people who are responsible for developing the product that you just launched. And obviously they can talk about it with a certain passion and a certain knowledge that perhaps the business owner or the CEO or whatever has a different view on it, but the product manager or the developer or whatever is somebody who really had their hands on that product and can explain how to use it and just give different insights, talk about how they've maybe been using it before it went live and things like that. So there's a lot you can do with interviewing. Obviously, you can interview customers as well, and that takes the form of testimonials in a sense. You're highlighting customers, you're making them feel good, you're showing other customers that you do highlight your customers and promote your customers and things like that. But it's also a chance to tell their story about how your product or service benefited them, how they're using it as they talk about their own successes. So it very much makes the case that somebody buys our product or our service and they use it in their business, and their business is doing well, or their personal brand takes off. And it's a wonderful testimonial, much better than a press release or, a corporate speak blog post or something like that. You're letting the customer speak in their own words. Hey, Brad Friedman, thanks so much for joining us. I'm Ross Brand from LivestreamUniverse.com. We're talking about interviewing today, sharing interviewing tips. The topic is related to our topic for South by Southwest. If you haven't had a chance to vote yet, please do vote for us. Myself, Coach Jenny, Monique Johnson, and Karen Graves have a panel proposal about Facebook Live for business, and you can vote for us at livestreamuniverse.com/SXSW, livestreamuniverse.com/SXSW. Now, another area in which interviewing can be very effective, and it also focuses heavily on employees, but that's for recruiting, for HR, for employment branding, and things like that. And it can be very effective to give people a kind of an inside look at your culture, your work culture, what it might be like to be a member of a team working at your organization through a member of that team's eyes, right? So having an about what it's like to work in a team there. And, you have to be open to sharing your culture a little bit and being transparent. And the positive is that it will attract people who would want to work in that environment and work on those kind of projects and work in that culture. And the other positive is it'll repel people who won't want to work in that type of environment or on those type of projects or in that type of culture. And that will save you time in screening resumes when you have openings and in doing interviews with people who really would either not be a good fit if you hired them or not really be interested in pursuing an opening once they learn more about the company. So you're giving them a chance to learn more, both people who would be interested in a good fit but might not know that this place, this is the work environment, and you're also telling people who wouldn't be a good fit, perhaps another environment might be better for you. So one of the other ways that you really can build a strong employment brand and attract people through interviewing is interviewing the employees about their growth, right? One of the things that people care about, employees care about if they're working for a company, more than even pay or benefits or vacation time or bonuses, they care about growth and development. Are they learning? Are they able to see a career path that's going to lead them to doing more of what they want to do, that's going to lead them to advancement, that's ultimately going to lead them to more money and recognition and so forth down the line. So interviewing employees who, there's of course the story of the employee who started in the mailroom and now is in the C-suite, and, and if you have that, that's great. But interviewing an employee who started as a coordinator and is now the director in a department or something like that, and somebody maybe who started before they even went to college, and then they used the tuition reimbursement program or something, and now they're a manager and they've got a master's degree or whatever. You're showing that people can achieve in your company, that they can grow and that they can learn, and it's a great way to signal to potential employees that your company cares about its employees, it cares about its growth and development, and that's extremely important for retention these days, because employees generally don't stay very long because they know that there's no longer that ladder that goes straight up, right? You have to leave, you have to go somewhere else, get a little more experience here, drop back to here, then you jump up 3 steps. So that's kind of how it goes. Brad Friedman asked, do you have any tips for interviewing contractors? Are you talking about like independent contractors, like people who you're bringing on for an assignment but aren't employees? Throw something in the chat. I'm gonna move on to one other aspect of this before I get into the specifics of interviewing and how you go about doing that for your show or for your business. The other aspect of interviewing is it's a great way to build your personal brand. It's a great way to establish yourself in your career as someone who's connected, who's knowledgeable, who's passionate about that field. And by doing interviews, first of all, it opens doors, right? So if you're looking for a job, or you're looking to let people know about some service that you're offering, doing interviews is a great way to get people who you might want to apply for a job at their company, or you might want them to be a client in the future, or whatever. So doing interviews, easy for me to say, doing interviews is a great way to get to know them while you're showcasing them. You're giving them a great experience by making them the featured guest on your show, the featured interview. You're doing a show card, you're promoting it, you're promoting them, you're promoting what their business is doing. And at the same time, they get to see you in action and get to build a rapport with you. They see you as a host of the show, so you're more on equal terms than you're somebody who's, begging for a foot in the door or something like that. Hey, welcome, Nazim. How are you? Actually, I may use you as an example. If you can stick around for a few minutes, I may mention interviewing you as one of the great examples of really good interviews that I feel that I've done, and want to use something about those interviews as an example in a little bit. So interviews are a really great way for you to make connections with people who you can then more easily have a pathway to a business relationship, or a job application, or a referral, or something like that. It's also a great way to learn. I mean, it's a great way to learn from smart people in your industry who are at the cutting edge, or who are at companies that are doing good things, and asking them questions and getting them to open up about what they're working on. And you're sharing it. You're becoming a conduit to your community in sharing that information, right? Through your questions, you're bringing that information. So it helps you continue to build your tribe and your community, and to become a player through a certain form of almost curation, right? In a way, I'm doing that with Livestream Stars, right? By having different leading live streamers on each week. I'm the one who's sort of bringing them to my community, who may know of them but may not have seen them interviewed before, or may have seen them interviewed but not have had the type of discussion that I would have with them, or whatever. So that's also a great way. And interviewing is just great if you are starting out in live streaming. It can be great for if you've been doing this for a long time. But if you're starting out in live streaming, remember that live streaming is part broadcasting, but it's also part social media. And it's all about the conversation and the community, both face-to-face and interacting with the chat. And by having somebody on, whether it's a co-host or it's somebody you're interviewing as a different guest each week, or what have you, that is a great way to start and facilitate the conversation, right? And that conversation will hopefully spill over to the chat. It will hopefully continue in between shows, after the show ends, when you repurpose the video, all that stuff. And each week's show becomes a different conversation as part of the theme of your show, right? So I think it's a great way that you don't have to feel sort of naked and alone on the air, right? Hey, Coach Jenny. Wow, that kind of sounded weird if you just jumped in. But what I'm saying, Coach Jenny, is how interviewing is a great way for somebody getting started in live streaming to not have to think about, like, okay, I'm going to sit here by myself on the air. What am I going to talk about? Will I have enough material for a half an hour? And then, after you've done this for several years, you can just jump on like I do and figure you can ramble on for 3 hours if you need to. You can fill with anything, right? But in the beginning, I know even for me, and I had worked in broadcasting before, it really made me feel comfortable about doing live stream shows. I was new to video, and it made me feel really comfortable to know that I was going to have somebody to talk to, and that conversation really then not only eases you into the live stream, but it brings your audience in as they get caught up in your conversation, and it facilitates the chat. Brad was asking about independent contractors that work for your business. Sometimes people want to spotlight these people, but there's hesitation to let others know you work with contractors rather than full-time employees. I think that if you spotlight anybody who's having, and this is just a quick off, I would need to give this some more thought. This is actually a pretty deep question, Brad, but I would say there's never a bad, okay, let me make this very, very non-committal, but I think in general, spotlighting people who have positive experiences with your organization is good, no matter whether they're full-time employees, they're contractors, they're customers, they're people you're entering into some sort of joint venture with, whatever it is, right? Spotlighting their positive experiences and contributions to your company and your contributions to their business or their employment or whatever it is, right? In this case, it's not traditional employment, it's independent contractors who are not employees. Yeah, there's maybe some people who might resent that, okay, why didn't you hire a full-time employee? But people know how the economy works now, and that, not every job is a full-time job. Some things are filled for a need in the short term or a specific type of relationship. Also, it allows independent contractors to work for more than one organization. Like independent sales reps can represent 8 different product lines or whatever. And so it's not all a loss because somebody's working as an independent contractor. Brad says he tuned in late. Did you already talk about how to reach out to people you don't know but respect to be on your interview show? I did not. I just ask. I mean, I don't have any secret format. Obviously, in my case, I'm a live streamer and I'm interviewing live streamers. So it makes the path a little bit easier in that you would hope there'd sort of be a professional courtesy, like the person would at least respond or whatever. I mean, I've had a few no's, but most people who are live streamers are going to want to be featured on a show called Livestream Stars and talk about live streaming with an audience that cares about live streaming, right? So for me, that part's been easy. But otherwise, it's the same thing as booking a speaker at an event. It's booking a guest on a radio or TV show. You just have to reach out and ask. I tend to keep it really brief. I look at what's in it for them, remind them that I'll promote their business and talk about their new book that's coming out, so that they're getting something for it. And then I'm getting something for it, which is a chance to ask them what I want to ask them, right? So there's always, I mean, when I worked in radio and at big market stations, there was this trade. There was this sort of implicit trade, right? Professional athlete has trying to get a positive reputation in the community after some bad press, right? So they want to come on and talk about the charity work they're doing, and you want to ask them about the quarterback controversy going on their team, right? And so you ask them about their charity, and then they let you ask them about the quarterback controversy, or vice versa, right? So there's so just think in terms of that, is that if you're willing to promote somebody and you're willing to give them a good experience, then you get to have them on your show and you get to ask them questions. And depending on what kind of show you're doing, you're not necessarily doing investigative journalism. You're not looking to put them on the spot or embarrass them, but you get to ask them questions about the industry and the business and things like that. And I think most people if you're going to promote their book or their new product or talk about something that they like to talk about. Not all of them, but a lot of people should be receptive. But it's simply thinking about what's in it for them, thinking about what's positive about your show, and just take a shot at it. The worst they can say is no, right? Or just not respond. So that's kind of how I look at it. Let's talk about some tips for doing interviews. What do you guys think is the most important thing about doing an interview? What is the most important interview skill that someone can have? And feel free to throw something in the chat if you can, if you have an idea. I will talk about a couple things related to interviewing. One is it's good if you're unsure about, you don't really know the guest very well, and you don't really know their industry or their work or what have you. Brad, bing, 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 bing. We have a winner. Brad is absolutely correct. Listening is the most important skill, because often your best questions will come from something that you didn't expect necessarily the person you're interviewing was going to say, and that leads to wonderful follow-up question opportunities. Also, be open to the chat. You often have great questions come from the chat, things you wouldn't have thought of, things that people mention because they know the guest or the guest material or what have you in a way that you don't know. But listening, I think, for me, that's the number one thing, is to focus on what the guest is saying and let the conversation happen, let the questions flow from there. And as I was saying, it's fine if you don't know that much about the person, the topic, whatever, or you have some things you need to ask or you want to ask. It's fine to write those questions down, to script them, to have them in a document on the side and review those. That's fine. It's fine to even script out 10 to 12 questions if you feel that helps you. What you don't want to do is get locked into those questions, whereby I ask Nazim, where is he located? And he tells me a story about Italy. And then my next question is, in your travel blogging experiences, have you ever been to Italy? Because I'm not listening, right? And you see that happen at the highest levels. And I know that a lot of things are going on. We're looking at the chat. If they're a news anchor, they're getting people speaking in their ear and stuff like that. But to make the interview flow and be a conversation, listen to what's being said, and you can often feed off of that. But there's also a balance. Keep in mind your agenda and the things you want to cover too. But don't force it. If it's in a good direction and people are, kind of get a feel for it, right? Sometimes you'll stick with an area longer than you thought, and other times you'll navigate away from something because you might have had a great question to ask, right? But you feel like the topic's basically, it's gotten its due already, or it's going in a more interesting direction, and let's go with it, and don't feel you need to come back and force a question in there. Chris Lavasser, my God, how many years has it been? Welcome, Chris. How are you? Great to see you. Chris Lavasser and I went to college together, and not sure, maybe I saw him a few years after college, but it's definitely been a long time. Welcome, Chris. Thanks for joining us. So we're talking about interviewing for your business, for building your personal brand, for building your tribe. It's all part of our South by Southwest 15 days of content every weekday during the voting. If you haven't had a chance to vote for us, please do vote. Livestreamuniverse.com/SXSW, Livestreamuniverse.com/SXSW, and help us get to South by Southwest. Glad things are going well, Chris. So great to see you. It's always nice to see people you haven't seen in a really long time jump on when you're live streaming. It's one of the things I really do love about this. Also, when it comes, thanks, Coach Jenny, for throwing that into the chat. In fact, let me pin that. And if you haven't voted yet and you would like to vote for us for South by Southwest, and why wouldn't you? Coach Jenny, myself, Monique Johnson, and Karen Graves. Our topic is Facebook Live, Build Your Tribe, and actually make money. Take a look at the pinned comment there. Click that link, and do go ahead and give us an upvote. And we'd love it if you threw a comment in support into the comment section. That's where comments do go as well. So also on interviewing, the other thing to think about and is not just asking the obvious questions, right? And like last night, I had Kathy Nolan on, right? And if I had her back on or another time, I could do an entire interview just about her artwork, her process, who she likes, what kind of people make for great caricatures, how she goes about drawing so quickly while she's live on a TV show or she's doing an interview like we did last night, how she got started, what kind of tools she uses, what kind of paper. I mean, there's a million different questions, right? Like who she was inspired by and all that. But you need to kind of feel the room too, right? And I did not ask her one question like that because what I sensed was that people were there to sort of celebrate the Never Settle show, to celebrate the community, and Kathy and people were also there who weren't necessarily artists in the sense of being illustrators, drawing, painting, things like that, but they were live streamers, they were writers, musicians. They had their own form of creativity, creative endeavors, things like that. And so what they could learn from Kathy was the business side of that. People wanted to hear, of course, about her experiences with the Never Settle show and what's going on there. She worked on ABC News related to broadcasting. It's related to live stream stars. Of course, Never Settle show is one of the premier things, premier events, premier shows to have happened during our time doing live video. So the focus of the conversation was a lot on things that related to my specific viewership, right? And the people who are coming to see Kathy because they love the Never Settle show. They love her live streams and things like that. So you don't necessarily have to do the obvious, right? And it doesn't mean you ignore it. I promoted big time her artwork and where to go to, set up a call if you want her to draw you, if you want to work with her, how she collaborates with businesses and different things. But in terms of the interview question, it was focused on live streaming, the Never Settle show, the community, how live streaming has helped her in business, how she uses it for marketing and to build her brand and things like that, her experience on Periscope versus Facebook Live, and also just how she's learned over time about the business side of being an artist, and that's led her to do consulting for other artists and help them in licensing their products and building their portfolio. If Nazim is still here, when I had him on, he's a travel blogger, Casey. He and his wife have a blog and do live streams all about seeing Italy and experiencing the food and the beautiful scenery and everything else, the history and wine and everything with Italy. And so that's, of course, always a part of interviewing him or interviewing somebody like Mia Voss, who's a travel blogger. But I also have to keep in mind that not everybody who's watching the show is necessarily thinking about traveling or can travel or Italy's on their travel list or what have you, right? And Nazim also is a live streamer, so we have that area to delve into. How is he using live streaming for Casey to share out and make people aware of what he's doing with his blog and what he's doing with different trips he's doing. Same thing with Mia Voss, but also to know that Nazim is very much on top of what's going on in tech. And so that all ties in with live streaming and what's happening with different platforms and things like that. So a big part of interviewing is knowing what subjects to cover, where to kind of weave in and weave out. I try and have 3 different areas, big picture areas, right? So I'm going to talk to Nazim about Italy and ask him some great places to go, when's a good time to visit, things like that. But I'm also going to ask him about the latest platform to add live video and whether it's something he's going to use and how he uses live streaming in his businesses and what he thinks of different ways tech's going. I might ask him about VR, things like that. So, and the same thing like last night with Kathy. I could have done an interview, and I probably will another time, where I talk to her nothing about nothing but her artwork. But it doesn't have to be that. You have to get a sense of where the room is and what people are interested in and what they're commenting about. And I thank you all for hanging in. If you have any questions about interviewing, I can stay on a little bit. I'm just catching up here on the comments. Coach Jenny says interviewing is really an art form. It is. I like to think it is. If I could paint or sing or something like that, then maybe I wouldn't consider it such an art form, but it's all I got. So, no, I'm kidding. So, Laura, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. Thank you, Jay. Good to see you. Thanks for the encouragement to vote. Fernando Ramirez, welcome. So good to see you. And, of course, please do vote for us for South by Southwest, livestreamuniverse.com/SXSW, livestreamuniverse.com/SXSW. Any other questions relating to interviewing? Again, it's just to recap quickly, it's a great way to break down doors and be able to get to know people who otherwise might not return a LinkedIn invitation or message, might not respond to an email. But if you invite them to be a guest on your show and to interview them, they may go ahead and take that step, and then you get to start building a relationship with them and show them a good experience and showcase how you handle a professional situation, all of which can open the doors to business opportunities, employment, things like that. The other thing about interviewing, if you have a business, it's a great way to let people see a little bit inside of a company that either they don't know anything about, they like and would like to feel a little closer to, they might want to work for, and that's often can be done by just showing your work culture and interviewing employees. Either they can tell their story about how they started in the mailroom and are now in the C-suite, so that you're showing that people grow and develop. You can just be introducing them and letting them learn a little bit about the people who are out on the sales floor that, customers, when they come into your store, will interact with and will be helping them. It can be talking to employees who are on a team working on a project, and that can be great not only for getting customers interested in what's coming up and what they can buy, but it's great for potential employees, some of the talent out there that you want to attract to your company, to get a feel for what your company's like and what it might be like to work on a team in your company, and they can feel either excited about, wow, that's a great place to work and I'd love to work there, or they might feel that it's not for them, and that's okay because it saves you time screening resumes and interviewing people for whom your company would not be a good fit. So those are some of the many different ways you can use interviewing. Again, I highly recommend doing interview shows if either you're not sure what content to create, having on a guest and learning about them and their industry and their subject matter and asking them questions about that is one great way to fill a show. but it's also just great as far as getting the conversation going, which hopefully will carry over to the chat, and having a portfolio of interviews after a year or 6 months or even 3 months. You'll have a bunch of interviews with people perhaps in your field or people who are known, and that's a form of social proof as well. And there are just so many benefits to it. If anything here strikes a chord and you'd like me to talk about it a little more, feel free to message me on Facebook or through social media or however you'd like to message me. You can also contact me through livestreamuniverse.com. But of course, when I say livestreamuniverse.com, I'm really thinking of the voting. livestreamuniverse.com/SXSW, livestreamuniverse.com/SXSW. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us here, and I hope you came away with something of value regarding interviewing, and please do reach out if I can be of help. Have a great day, everybody.